Little Miss Somersault by Roger Hargreaves. Hello boys and girls, today we're going to read Little Miss Somersault by Roger Hargreaves. Are you ready? Are you sitting comfy? Okay, let's get started. Little Miss Somersault by Roger Hargreaves. Little Miss Somersault is the sort of person who doesn't just go out for a walk. Oh, not Little Miss Somersault. She's too full of energy for that. Rather than walking everywhere, she cartwheels everywhere. There she is, cartwheeling. She doesn't just walk through the front door. That would be too easy. She built a house where she could climb over the roof first. She is. It's a funny looking house, isn't it? Little Miss Somersault doesn't just sit in a chair. She balances at the back of it. Goodness, that looks a little dangerous to me. Little Miss Somersault doesn't walk around things. She jumps right over them. There she is, jumping over the flowers. Oh, this one's a tricky one. Well, maybe not. And rather than answer the telephone as you or I might, well, just look at her. She's somersaulting all over the place, isn't she? The other day, when she was cartwheeling past Mr. Worry's house, he called out to her. "There's a leaf on my roof. Please, could you get it for me?" he asked. Mr. Worry had spent the whole morning worrying that the leaf might make his roof fall in. "I have a long ladder," he added. Little Miss Somersault said, "I don't need a ladder." And quick as a flash, she climbed on top of Mr. Worry's house and got the leaf off. I wonder if Mr. Worry was worrying about Little Miss Somersault. A little further down the lane, Little Miss Somersault came to Mr. Skinny's house. Mr. Skinny was at the top of a ladder painting his roof. There's Mr. Skinny, painting the roof of his house with a ladder. Unfortunately, Mr. Bump came round the corner and walked under the ladder. Or rather, he tried to walk under the ladder, but being Mr. Bump, he walked straight into it. Bump. And you can see what happened. Mr. Skinny fell off. Little Miss Somersault had seen it all happen, and without a thought for the ladder lying on the ground, she climbed on top of Mr. Skinny's house and carried him safely to the ground under her arm. He wasn't very heavy, because he was Mr. Skinny. By the next morning, everybody had heard about Little Miss Somersault's daring deeds. The telephone rang. It was Mr. Uppity. "There's an umbrella stuck in my chimney. I hear you're good at climbing on roofs. I'll expect you here in 5 minutes." Mr. Uppity's house is one of the biggest houses you will have ever seen. To climb on the top of Mr. Uppity's house would be a real challenge, said Little Miss Somersault. There she is answering the phone whilst doing a somersault. It took no time at all for Little Miss Somersault to climb onto Mr. Uppity's roof. "That was easy," she said as she balanced on her chimney pot. Then she looked down at the ground far below her. That was the last thing she should have done. Little Miss Somersault suddenly felt dizzy. Her knees began to tremble. Everything began to spin round and round. Little Miss Somersault had discovered she was afraid of heights. Wowee! Luckily, Mr. Tickle happened to be passing. He stretched out one of his extraordinarily long arms. Do you think he wanted to tickle Little Miss Somersault? Of course he didn't. Of course he did, but not before he had brought her back safely down to the ground. "Stop it," laughed Little Miss Somersault. "I promise I won't do anything so foolish again." And off went Mr. Tickle to look for someone else to tickle. That evening, Little Miss Somersault was sitting, that's right, sitting in her armchair. Suddenly, the telephone rang. "My hat has blown off," said a voice at the other end, "and it's landed on the roof of my house. Could you—" Little Miss Somersault's face turned pale. "Who is this?" she asked in a trembling voice. "It's Mr. Small," said Mr. Small. Little Miss Somersault breathed a huge sigh of relief. "I'll be there in 5 minutes," she said, and off she somersaulted. That was Little Miss Somersault by Roger Hargreaves.